E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guinois Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief. And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Friday, and today is a wonderful day because we're going to be talking about women in leadership. And with us today, we got a young lady by the name of Deb Lewis. We've had her on, I've been on a show with her before, and we're going to be joined by Mr. Emerson Brantley, our director of marketing. But we've got to give a little tribute to a good friend of ours, Mr. Bill Heinrich. Our show is proudly brought to you by the 7 Levels of Truth. This book here that Bill wrote, took him about 30 years to do it. He walked away from his life because he was so miserable. And they found that, through his studies and everything that he compiled in that book, there's only 2 major emotions in life. There's love and there's fear. There's either something at a higher calling or you're stuck in the physical. So if you're struggling with, trying to find the peace, comfort, and love that you so richly deserve in your life, please go to Amazon and take a look at this book here, The 7 Levels of Truth by Mr. Bill Heinrich. And I'm going to bring on Mr. Emerson Brantley. Emerson, we know you're getting ready for, you had the hurricane down there or whatever, it's.
That's it.
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah, Ian is heading our way.
Yeah, we're pre-recording this show here a little bit because we don't know what the hurricane's going to do down there with the power and all that. And we're very much worried about, messing up Emerson's hair because that's just,
There's not a lot of it.
Well, that's what worries us about it.
I knew where you were going with that, Jim. I knew where you were going.
I hear you.
You with that pompadour and perfect hair. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I spray paint it twice a day, whether I need it or not, But really, Emerson, you've really been looking forward to this day, having Deb on the show here. Deb Lewis.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Talk about a high energy young lady that is a leader. And, when it comes to women in leadership, probably if you looked in the dictionary under that title, it'd probably have her picture there, You know what I mean?
Could be.
Yeah. And we're glad that you're feeling better because you suffered a fall here the other day. And we're just so glad that you're here, being able to be with us, Emerson.
A little shiner to boot.
Yeah, a little bit there. Bless your heart. But we're going to keep you in our thoughts and prayers. And we hope all the folks over there down in Florida with the hurricane coming in, We're going to keep you in our thoughts and prayers.
Definitely. This one is a big one.
Yes. And it's going to be very slow moving. So hopefully by the time this broadcast on Friday, you guys will, at least be seeing some daylight, at least. We hope. We don't know. We just don't. But our thoughts and prayers are with you because the storm surge from that is going to be tremendous. That's the danger point. Emerson, I'm going to click on the button here, and I'm going to let you welcome Deb Lewis to our show.
And now for the main event.
Yeah, there we go.
Deb Lewis.
Welcome to the show, Deb. Welcome so much.
The immediate past commander for the state of Hawaii for the veterans of foreign wars, among other things.
Yeah, one of many hats.
One of many hats.
I do wear a number of hats, as do both of you.
Yes.
We sure do. Deb, would you be so kind as to share a little bit about who you are, your background, and just anything you'd like to share with the audience, please?
Yes, I would like to first share that when you take a look at me, just like when you're talking about your hair,
look
at me, and some people think the happiest people have had an easy life. And I would just say all 3 of us are great examples to say, no, the happiest people are those who have been to the war and back and choose to be happy. So that's one. So my little claim to fame, I guess, is I have probably been spit on, yelled at, put down, shot at, mortared, and all kinds of stabbed in the back. People who know you, who then turn on you. I've had maybe 10,000 times in the leadership jobs. And it all started when I went to West Point in the first class with women. And then I spent 34 years in a military career as an engineer, another pretty male-dominated one. Love you guys, but you know what happens in those environments.
Amen.
And the military course is military. And of course, West Point, since 1802, had never had women. And when we were the first class, we were treated so nicely.
Oh, I bet so. My goodness gracious. When I was in the Army, in the Army originally from 68 through 71, the women, they were the women in the Army at that time. They were in the Women's Army Corps, known as the WACs.
Yes.
And
they didn't integrate until when we were at West Point, they started integrating, but really didn't happen until 1980 when we graduated. And then the other thing is, who else has to deal with this kind of toxic environment? Yeah. And I can tell you, if you stay in leadership positions or you really care about the future, then you can guarantee that people will try to take you down. And I love to prepare people to say, hey, it's a fact. I'm in multiple nonprofits. I won't name the one where I've got certain individuals I worked with for years, and now they won't even talk to you when they walk in the room because for some reason they've got this new line of thinking that they're very helpful. And we know that's not true.
Yeah, I tell you,
there's an agenda. People have agendas.
Everybody. And if there's ego involved, forget it. You know,
ego. Yeah. Ego is another one. I worked with a company, one of the first of several that I've been involved in taking public. And I actually made up a logo for the company, and I'm using Pig Latin. I had the motto as "Ego pro lucrum," which my interpretation was ego over money, because that really, their own agenda, their own sense of self-worth and importance, and their turf and all the other things, took a precedence over, hey, aren't we all on the same team trying to reach this point?
Yeah.
But if anyone in your audience wants to lead a joyful life, as all three of us know how to do, in the midst of the worst storms ever, figuratively and literally, then we have something to really talk about that they, I think, will enjoy.
Absolutely.
One of the things you'll love this, Deb, that I have 3 daughters, as you know, and 4 granddaughters, and even our dog was a girl.
Outnumbered you were?
I've been surrounded by powerful women my whole life, but one of the many things that I shared with my daughters when they would just be beside themselves, usually about some relationship thing that they were involved in, was, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because what you said is so true.
And the other one that I have, the corollary to that, do you want to be right or do you want to make things better?
There you go.
Exactly. Do you want to make things better?
Because making things better doesn't mean that people won't attack you.
No way.
You have kind of a target painted on you at that point. But that's okay, because when you know who you can depend on, then you just reach out to them. There's so many ways we can talk about, but yes. And I learned it early. I had no idea I was stepping into a social revolution, which is much more than going to a very difficult place, which West Point was already known for. Physically, mentally, emotionally, leadership, all of those things were true. And then you layer on the social component with enormous norms and pressures to get rid of people, run them out. Our classmates were also hazed, nowhere near what we were, but even a little bit. I had people who stopped talking to me that first year because they didn't want to get hazed. So,
wow.
Classmates, so why I'm passionate about helping people handle stress is because if you know how to do it and handle it in a way to have a positive outcome, then everybody benefits. Everyone achieves success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when it comes to jealousies and things of that nature, ladies and gentlemen, it's part of life. And people who are jealous of you, just realize that jealousy is nothing but a form of hatred, and it's designed to wound you, help them feel better about themselves. And I remember some advice that I heard one time. This individual got promoted, and he made the comment, says, "Yeah, but body's, so, unhappy about it and all that. And they're saying all these mean things." And the supervisor said, "Don't worry about it. That's normal." He says, "After about 90 days, they'll get tired of complaining. They'll find something else. Don't worry about it. Just drive on." And
here is the way that I differ in how to then take that. I
Mhm.
always look at that as a challenge. Now we won't show this clip, but there's a funny video clip about Pee Wee football where there's this little guy, and he is the quarterback, and he gets the ball and he runs with it, and you hear their little voices going, "Okay, let's go." and you're laughing already. Now he takes the ball and he goes forward and everyone's cheering. And then for some reason he decides to go right and turns around 180 degrees. And then everyone's going, "No, no," on his team going, "No, no, no." But it all sounds like yelling. And then he comes back around and goes in the right way again towards the touchdown, and everyone's cheering. And then he turns around yet one more time. And then the other team steals the ball from him and make a touchdown the other way.
Oh, yeah.
I think of people who are behaving, we could say badly, badly, mean, and all of that, as like that little peewee person. They don't know what they don't know, because nobody wakes up in the morning saying, "I want to." Maybe they say it, but they really don't understand that the more they hurt other people, they hurt themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that we will never maybe know what the source of it is, because maybe they don't know. And you could spend years and years in therapy, or from where I sit, I'm an engineer. Okay, address the behavior. Do not make it okay to do it, but you have to do it in a loving way. You have to, and that takes a lot of creativity and skill. And people normally just want fast answers. But if you want sustainable change in people like that, you have to deal with it differently, because otherwise you enable them to be exactly the way they are.
You're exactly right. Emerson, when you think about, the strong women you've had in your life and the women that I've had in my life that's very strong, I'm very, very grateful for that, because they had an ability to communicate with me that maybe my dad couldn't. Let's be honest. I was a teenager, like I tell people, I was a kid in the 50s, an overly intelligent teenager in the 60s. So Dad and I, we, him and I were on two different wavelengths when I was a teenager, you might say, which is normal. But through it all, the ladies in my life they were the mainstay for me. They were the ones that kind of kept my feet on the ground and kind of kept my GPS calibrated to where, I didn't go too far off out in the boonies, and I'm very grateful for that. And I know you feel the same way, Emerson.
Yeah, it took a long time for me to figure it out. And I had lots of really, really good mentors along the way. And I had increasing numbers, and I do marketing for companies. I've done it in 21 countries. So I've done a lot of it. And increasingly, I had that to feed on. But if I can take just a minute, Jim.
Sure.
When I met my wife, we both had been married, and we both were not in the place of looking for anybody. And a lot of our viewers can understand, they're probably nodding their heads right now going, yeah, I know what you mean. But we became close. We met with a group of people. We were always together with a group of people. But we began talking about things, everything under the sun except for love, romance, and marriage, because we weren't there. How many of you know what I mean? We weren't there. And one morning I woke up and I realized, I said, this was the thought. There are a lot of wonderful people in the world. There's only one Annie, and she's the one I want. And I got dressed, got in my car, drove over to her studio. She's an artist, and she started the art program at Florida State College here. And I asked her to sit down, which she thought was kind of weird. And I said, Annie, you don't need me, and I don't need you. Now, I've told this all over the country, and men sit there going, I never heard that line. Where'd that go? And women are going like this, right? I said, and she said, yeah, your point. I said, I feel like together we enhance each other. Will you marry me? And we had never had a date. Now, that started a mental and emotional journey for me. And we still are married. We just celebrated our 24th year. Mm-hmm. Yay. But it started a journey. Why did I ever think that I could, what was going on in my head, and where did that come from? And that began the journey that introduced me to the powerful side of the women in my life, going back to my mother, who died in 30 years before that, who had left the farm as a teenager, got on the train and went to Washington, D.C., up to the White House, got a job working in the White House. It's like, where did she come up with this? How do you go from working on a farm in rural Georgia to working in the White House? And there are many, many other things I won't take the time here to describe that started clicking in place for me. And I started to recognize that the things that have strengthened me and made me who I am, the powerful women in my life, my two sisters, my couple of mother-in-laws, my wife, of course, my first wife even, and my 3 daughters, 4 granddaughters. You know, these are all things that have affected the way that I think in terms of everything. And in terms of marketing and the work that I do, it's given me a whole different slant on it. Instead of, in marketing and sales, people talk about killing, overcoming, beating down, using a hammer close. I mean, all these crazy things, when it's really about relationships. It's about building long-term trust in relationships with people, where you're valuing them beyond just how much their credit card is swiped today or how much they paid last month. And those are things that really matter. So when I talk about the powerful women in my life, those are things that now I take as part of who I am, because women, in my experience, women get the relationship part of it. And how important that is. And it's more important than, well, here's my turf, to your point. Here's how we've always done it. Well, I just don't think she knows as much as I know. It's like, it's about the relationships we're building. And when we get that part lined up, magic happens.
And Emerson, that's something that people miss today. I mean, they miss it today. Truly is the relationship. And then I contrast that with the way that people have been taught and people feel is successful, is they see a strong woman or even a strong man as a threat.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have a strong person. Now that's where stress gets in, because when you see something as a threat, there is, who's stressed? I'm stressed, you're stressed, and that's healthy stress. We have healthy stress. We can't live without the healthy stress, because relationships take work. They take paying attention and listening.
They're messy things.
Exactly. But unhealthy stress is very obvious when it presents itself, because you can find yourself agonizing either over something you did that you wish you didn't do, or you're upset because someone else behaves that way, and it can totally hijack your life. I mean, and that's where I help people who have been hijacked. They've gone off, and in their heart, they want to be loving and caring, but nobody taught them that you need, here I have my shield. I have a shield. You need to protect yourself from toxic people. You can't just stand there openly like I did for over 30 years and thinking it's not going to affect me. We are energy beings. And
Yes.
so understanding that is so important. And when you start thinking of someone as a threat, you have to realize it's not them, it's you.
There you go.
Usually is
There
us.
you go.
Yeah, you're
As
exactly
soon as
right.
you start thinking, people are told you should fight them. Okay, I have been in combat. There's a tiny place and you have too, tiny place where that makes sense, except most of the time it makes absolutely opposite. It'll ruin whatever chances you wanted in something if you have to fight them. There's even Sun Tzu would say the greatest battle is one that was never fought, something like that. And yet people still today, and then when they have more stress, like you have the storm coming on, I had my car battery didn't start as I'm getting ready to run a quick errand before the show, stuff happens in life. And I learned the other point I want to make is at West Point, they had never had data on women. They had data then since 1802. Yeah. And then when the women arrived, they had no data. And you really do not know what vast potential each of us has until you give yourself the chance to explore that and test that. And by being knocked down negatively, you either get destroyed, which some did, some never will go back to West Point. They have post-traumatic stress, whatever. Or you figure out where that mental toughness is, and you decide, I'm a loving person. I'm not going to make that person change who I am, but I need to survive this. And there are some things that I have to do. But even then, fighting, running away, or shutting down are not ways to approach any issue. And when women started coming to West Point, they had no data because they want to argue the physical side. Okay, let's talk. That's
where they put their focus.
Yeah, let's talk the physical side. Well, they gave the stats for cadets. One time we had a speaker. He gave the stats for cadets, and the old grads. They're going, wow, and they go, and that was for the women. and then you find today, like we had one of our classmates. She could have done anything that the guys could do. There were many good runners and other. I was not one. Okay, running was my test. It tested my potential. But then now today, we have over 100 women who have succeeded in Ranger School. Now, for the Army perspective, that is an incredible one. They can max do the top men's PT test. Okay. If I could have done that, I would have loved being at West Point. I think because the physical was, everyone has something test them, but the physical running was definitely mine.
Oh, yeah.
I now ride a 3-wheel bicycle, but I just wanted to say women were never given the opportunity because so many people, because of their norms or they're just what they've learned, they won't give them a chance, and they won't also give new ideas a chance, which is even more important today. Whether it's a 4-year-old, you ever watch that show where the little kids are brainiacs? I mean, they're just amazing physically, mentally. And then I think of people who are 100. And you say, wow, look at what they can understand and capture with all that they've gone through. And yet we aren't even paying attention half the time to the people who have that potential. So it is not a gender thing. It's not a race thing. It's just an open-mindedness. If we looked at everything as an iceberg, we would stop reacting to what we see on the surface. And we would ask better questions. Like getting Polaroid sunglasses. You ever had Polaroid sunglasses when you have, you have the light is shining on it and you can't see below the surface, but you put those on and all of a sudden you can see? Yeah. If we could give that perspective to people just in this talk today, how powerful could that be? Especially when they see something that doesn't meet their expectation and they want to go negative. I would say pause. And I have so many tools. I have I'm an engineer. In my toolkit over here, I've got that. I've got a helmet. My helmet is to protect wisdom. You
Mm-hmm.
put this on, no matter how they fight
All
you.
right. No, I like that. Yeah, I like
You
that.
have to
That's
protect
cute.
your wisdom,
Yeah.
right? I've learned how to use combat weapons. I know
Mhm.
how to use the saber drills and the other
Mhm.
things that we would do.
Yeah.
But the thing is you do that to make sure you don't get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to be used as an offensive weapon to hurt other people.
Mhm.
And to me, in leadership, most men get this too. Like you two, I love you two. You can be with a strong woman and not feel threatened.
Mhm.
And you can be loving and you can be open-minded. There are many who cannot, and I encourage them to think about it because they miss out as much as anybody else.
And it's not about the woman.
Yeah, it's not.
Exactly.
Because it could be something else that they, it's just, we're just a simple target, okay?
Mhm.
We're pretty obvious.
Well, and they do. I think people tend to look beyond themselves.
Yeah.
And put their focus on the other, whoever that is.
Mhm.
So it can be somebody who has more money. It can be somebody of a different race. It can be somebody who's a different gender.
Yeah.
It can be somebody from a different country. Anything at all that takes the focus off of themselves, and dealing with that's really where the liberty comes in. When you really get to that place where you realize, you know what, it's me.
Yeah. Would
It
you
really,
like to
you know what?
Yeah.
I have choices.
Yes, you do.
And
would you like to know the number one way that I teach people in order to get to that point that you're just talking about, Emerson?
Absolutely.
To make sure that you can have that insight. I'm an engineer, remember, and I like to do things.
Really? I didn't know that. Did you know that, Jim?
I like to do things fast. If something's not where I want it, I'm the one that if I've got to swing on a rope and go over to another place to get to where I need to, or if I don't have a ladder, I'm going to do something safely, but I'm going to figure out how to do it. Or if I don't have a certain tool, I'll find that. Maybe some of your audience likes to do that. Maybe you guys like to do that. And so I wanted to know, where is that point where we lose that insight that you're talking about, Emerson? Where is that point? And it's that point where we see something as a threat. And the first reaction, do you know where that happens? It's like the canary. We're older. We can talk about the canary in the mine. The canary in the mine where you detect something early. It's our breathing. Our breathing is usually the first thing to go. And when people get stressed, they'll hold their breath. Now, I can tell you, unless you're someone like Tom Cruise or Kate Winslet, I heard she beat his time. What happens at 3 minutes when you hold your breath?
Pass out.
Yeah, or die.
Die, yeah.
Yep. So, okay. So what are you doing before that? As soon as you start restricting your breathing, 50% of us automatically do not get enough oxygen to our brain, because 50% of us are, as babies, we could use 100%, but now we can only they only choose to use 50. They do shallow breathing. They get by with shallow breathing throughout the day. There's people who are experts in this, talk much, much more about it.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact is that, okay, now what's happening? You're restricting your breathing. Well, you're automatically, the helmet is for wisdom. You're automatically throwing your body into a higher alert. And then the other thing that we do is 50% are mouth breathers. Again, not as efficient in taking in air to oxygenate your brain. So you cut it down in two potential ways significantly, where you are throwing your body into survival mode thinking before even anything has happened. And then a little thing happens. That's why people completely go off.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use that wonderful engineered feature on your face. Are you ready for the 10 seconds that could change your life? Now, again, I'm very skilled at it. Sometimes it only takes one. You may have to do more. But this is the way to stop going into survival mode, which hijacks your being, and stay where you are. And if all leaders understood this, if all people understood this, they don't say, oh, take a breath. No, it's not that simple. You have to do something very specific. So now I want you to think of, it's 10 seconds, 3 seconds breathing in, 7 seconds breathing out. So you have to pace yourself, okay? The 3 seconds in is having to use your engineered feature on your face, that nose. Mm-hmm. Please use that when you're breathing in. And then you breathe out with your mouth. The 7 seconds. Here's the difference with the waterfall method. In Hawaii, we have water. You're going to have water pretty soon. The power of water is unbelievable. You do not want to go in any kind of moving water, even standing water, but moving water can cause you to drown. I mean, it can move huge containers that are on trucks. I've seen it in Korea and other places. Just a few inches of water with velocity behind it, boom, you're gone. So please be careful in floods. But with water, you can cleanse the inside of you of all that toxic goo that you have accepted from our world. And the people in your life, maybe 10 years ago, who said horrible, you ever had those voices in your head? The people who said that stuff, it's residing in your body. Mm-hmm. So when you breathe in, you can then expel it just like a clean waterfall coming in and flushing all that toxic goo, and you breathe it out as hot air, and then you get rid of it. So you ready for just one? So we're at a state of being very high energy here. Are we ready?
I'm ready. How about you? Okay.
I'm going to count. I can't count and breathe at the same time. So I want you to exaggerate your breathing so I know you're doing it. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Go. In 1, 2, 3. Out. Mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just like your phone when it goes wonky, and what do you do with your phone? You turn it off and on, right? This waterfall method will reset your body in 10 seconds. And if you reset your body, you will think clearly to do what Emerson and Jim, you were talking about. Because it is not easy in a toxic world to just say, oh, I can take it. Because if you've never had training, like I've had training for years and years, I can literally take any situation and help you gain the confidence to stop being stuck and move forward again, emotionally, especially. Yeah. So I love what I do.
I love that.
Yeah. Because one of the key things that that I've learned in life, and Bill talks a lot about in his book, is that love yourself and love others. And, if someone is, if they don't love you back or anything like that, or if they're harboring anything, just love them enough to let them go. And when you were talking about that breathing, I want to share this, if I may. When I was in the hospital and had to have, right before I had my surgery, and I got off, I was ready to go home because I was going to be an outpatient. And they said, no, this ain't going to work for you. You got to have open heart surgery. And oh man. So I just said, well, Lord, it's in your hands. I just kind of, frustrated more than anything else. And the point being is that when I just said, it's in your hands, if the surgery goes well, I go home. If it doesn't go well, I go home. And I just kind of but what surprised me was that I was immediately encapsulated in love. And, just like you talk about breathing, I was inhaling love at that realm. And I understood everything. It's kind of like going into a dark room, you turn a light and the light lights up the entire room. That's exactly what happened to me mentally. And I understood everything would go, everything go well. I was a safe place. Nothing could hurt me or touch me or anything like that. But my point was when Deb was talking about breathing, that's what came to my mind at that realm. And I totally surprised. All I said was just in your hands. I let my guard down is what happened because I was blocking that energy. I didn't know it then. I mean, beforehand, but I knew it then. And it was just like I was just inhaling love. And, you know, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It's a very safe place. And when the surgeon was talking about they're going to take the veins out of my legs and do the bypasses around my heart, and I said, hey, that's great. And he looked at me, because that's an oddball statement for a patient to make to his cardiologist. He probably thought, you know, did they shut the oxygen off to his head or what? And I said, no, where I'm coming from is that now, since you're going to be using my own body parts, I don't have to worry about taking rejection drugs for 2 years with those. And that's where and I could only say that if I was coming from a safe place. But my correlation here is that I was inhaling love, and it's just at that realm. So inhaling
you were at
good.
a meta level. You were at such a high skill level.
Yeah.
And you know what would have happened if you had gone the other way, which some people, because they have no skills, every new bit of data is thought of as a threat.
Yeah.
And it just gets them, their heartbeat goes up, their breathing gets shallow, their whole body starts going into that survival mode, which is a very different kind of the healing that you went through, because now your body focused on what does it need to do. And anyone who's had endorphins with the love, like Emerson was talking about, and we just celebrated our 23rd, you know, for the same thing. But you know, when you have that kind of love that you are bringing in and giving out to the world, and we all know, Emerson and I know your sense of humor, you know, it's just like the one who could be in the worst thing, but you know that you let them know you're alert, you're paying attention, and you got them to stop stressing. See, when you can bring out the best in you, also are able, by that love that you showed and by the love you emanated and the humor that you had, you help bring out the best in the team.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's, you know, it also, I think it really did a lot for my recovery and all that, because even in the cardiac ward, this one nurse told me, she says, I've worked here for 4 years. I've never seen anybody move like you can move. You get up and you take a shower 2 days after surgery, open heart surgery. I had 4 bypasses. And I said, well, there's one thing you hadn't considered. She said, what's that? I said, maybe I'm too dumb to know the difference. But see, having a sense of humor, that's some of the best medicine you can give yourself. It really is. Yeah, you know.
I think of dogs, you know, dogs when they've had surgery, you know, that I thought you were going to go there, but I love what you said. But, you know, the dogs, I actually model. What do dogs do when they get up in the morning? Do they leap out of bed? Sometimes, but most of the time they're going to go stretch one arm, one leg, you know, and they get, I said, God, I got to learn more from the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you.
They're smart. But no, they get up right after surgeries and they don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah. I woke up this morning, I was pondering, you know, back when, you know, long before cell phones, if someone called you, you know, you call the number back if you get a chance to answer, because you remembered all the numbers in your mind. I'm going like, wow, wonder what that portion of my mind's doing now, since I don't have to remember all those numbers anymore. You know,
you tapped into your vast potential. You have so much potential. I know you're like the cat that has 9 lives, but I understand that. But the other piece is that when you can tap into your potential, it is vast. We know only 5%. Like if we started studying the brain, we know less than 5%, and maybe that's not what's most important. But when we open ourselves up to our potential, then we can take advantage of that. And I believe together, and you talked earlier about the relationships, Emerson. I mean, it is the relationships. And the only way you can bind closely together is through love and understanding and trust and support of each other. It's like the baton. You see someone faltering, you don't go, oh, they're faltering, you know. You say, oh, let me help you. What can I do? You know, how can I help? And people now have been taught and fed lies about, it's like that quote that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. You know, if you want to go far, go together. That's an African proverb. People, it's not that you won't accomplish something alone, but it's not sustainable. And you need people around you to make sure that you're on the right path. And when you get angry, right now, I'm dealing with people who do what I call accusatory questions. Familiar with those? If
Oh
it's
yeah.
if it's not the tone, it's like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
That's accusatory, right? Why'd you do that? Or I could look at Emerson and say, why did you do that? That's really interesting. Why did you do that? It's the same words, but it comes in completely different meaning. And when you don't even realize you're making accusatory questions, you are now become a threat to the people you're talking to.
That's right.
I mean, people,
And
I
there,
love people in the mirror.
and there's training in classes that teach people to do that too.
That's why that's what I do. I help people.
I wanted to share something that's in any relationship, there are always little rough spots and challenges. Okay. Yeah. And one of the issues, and for our viewers especially, to assume that any of the three of us have never had those kinds of things to deal with is not giving yourself credit. We have. There are things that we have learned over the years, tools, as Deb put it. And I'll share, that was a great one that you shared with the breathing, because they've actually done brain scans of people, and they can see how doing what you had us do actually causes the sections of the brain to slow down and to calm out. Wow. There's another one that I learned because I've done a fair amount of work in the brain science area with clients. When you're, and I'm going to use our traditional right brain, left brain for this example. That's not that's not the technical name for them, but we'll just use that for the example. So if your left brain is the analytical brain and the right brain is the people call it emotional. I like to say the intuitive brain, the feeling, reasoning brain. Okay. Right. Which, by the way, I believe is the more advanced brain than the analytical brain. I just the facts. I do things, without I don't do it emotionally. I make non-emotional decisions. That's
you can be right. You can be right and entirely wrong for the situation.
Yeah. But when we are in those heated moments, and I'll just say it like that, where we're really there's this disconnect. What I've learned to do over the years is to walk outside. And we've all heard about, count to 10 and do this, do that. But this is exactly how the brain works. I will try to come up with the most impossible equation imaginable, like 4,273,643.726 times 42,609, something I would never, ever in my life be able to figure out. But I start the process of trying to create the answer to that. And what happens in your brain is all of that energy that's in that emotional, hot, going back and forth at each other's throat kind of moment, all of that energy moves over to the other side of the brain to solve that problem. And it drains that energy. And in doing so, literally in seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, I'm cleared out of it. And I'm able to step back in and go, okay, the most important person in the world to me is in the other room. A week from now, 2 or 3 days from now, I won't even remember any of this. And when I go back in, the very first thing I do is say, please forgive me for the way I was reacting. People say, well, what if you were right? It doesn't matter. It's not about being right. It's the way I was reacting in that moment. It's not about who's right or wrong. And that's where people miss it and just derail relationships. Because what it's about is the way I'm reacting instead of responding. And when I do this, it brings it down and it puts it back into perspective. And I have to say, it's a powerful, powerful tool if for anybody who's watching, if you've
Yeah.
never, ever thought that there was a way to, get out of something without losing, it's not about winning and losing. It's about the relationship.
Yeah.
It's about the way we react or the way we respond. And
I love
the way that your brain will help you.
That you have defined. I teach the same. We have very similar. That I knew that's why Jim wanted us to get together.
Yeah,
because
that way I can take a break.
between those two, react is you're going with instinct, and I say instinct stink. Instinct stink. It's just like you talked about. You got the analytical side. You could be factually correct and entirely wrong for the situation.
Absolutely.
And make it worse. Make whatever your goal was worse. I actually, my dad's in his 90s. He just turned 96. Wow. And I actually got such a breakthrough with him because he had the same situation with my mom. My mom would say something. My mom says something. Her memory is not as good anymore. She says, we went shopping yesterday and we went, my dad will go, no, you didn't. And I think about 90% or 70% of the population says no as a reaction, like Tourette's. They don't even know they said it. Like they deny. My husband will deny it. My dad denies. They even said no. But we hear it because we said something. We hear that no. And it's like, so that could be factual. And then my mom will go off like you lit a rocket ship. Boom, she'll go off. And then my dad, when he gets his chance, he'll say, you didn't do it yesterday. You did it the day before. And it's like, okay, you could be factually correct, but entirely wrong. How is that helping?
What you do?
He gets it now. He gets it now. It's really
that's
funny.
good.
Yeah, he gets it. But it's not easy for people who don't want to change and see what you just discussed, the benefit of it. Yeah. Because what you did is you did like the 10-second. I find that's the most life-changing thing that I've brought to people. That's what they come back to say. What you did is a wonderful one for the analytics who always want to be right. Yes. Okay. The ones that always want to be right, if you have to deal with an equation, which is a factual one, that diverts that energy.
It pulls it just completely drains it. Like you feel it dropping like a waterfall.
And then you can focus on what's most important, because that's the next question. What is most important? Is your relationship important to you? Maybe it is, and then you can look at an alternative. But if you react and stay in instinct when you're in survival mode, all bets are off.
Oh yeah.
And being able, and again, this is a challenging one sometimes for people. Being able to say, please forgive me for the way I react.
Oh yeah.
You know what? It doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Doesn't mean anything. Your reaction is totally independent of that. You have a complete choice of how you react every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And when we take personal responsibility for that, there's no problem. If I am taking personal responsibility for my actions.
Yes. When you went
asking you to forgive me for the way I reacted.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's no check mark. There's no, tick mark here, 0 here. There's none of that.
Yeah.
We've just zeroed everything out again and made it into something that isn't about whatever it was about.
Well, and I want to bring it back to
leadership. Together again.
I want to bring it back to leadership, because this is leadership. Oh, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
It is leadership. Yeah.
Something when you're standing there and someone else is going off, or they did something that seems completely contradictory to your orders. There are those who in leadership positions who will then start yelling at them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They won't ask the question first. Thank goodness I had at least 2 in my career that when I was doing something that might have sounded different or looked different, what it was in keeping with intent, because leaders' intent is what is most important. What are we trying to accomplish, rather than caught up with the details, which at the time of the decision might have made sense. But as situations evolve, you have to be like the lower part of the iceberg things are evolving and you have to be paying attention, because that could be the greater threat or an opportunity. What I love to do, and it sounds like each of you love it. If there's an opportunity, man, I'm seizing it, because I could actually get a better outcome than I could have imagined with the information I had. And then new information comes in and there's this opportunity. But the task-oriented people may only focus on what they were told and carrying that out to the letter, because that's their success. So the leader is challenged to be able to explain what the intent is above all, and to give them the trust and support that if they make a different decision than what maybe we might have thought at the beginning, that we're going to support them, not crucify them. And
because leadership is not just getting people to follow you just because you say something. Leadership is getting people to understand, and most importantly, if I could say it like this, buy into the same principles and beliefs and the mission that they see the value in.
Well, and to find their own leadership.
Yes, because if someone goes down, the military does a great job of this. If a leader goes down, they don't have to sit down and, have a powwow on who's, what we're going to do next. It's automatic. It's kicked in.
Could be the lowest ranking one there who may be the one left standing. Yeah, they have to be prepared.
Exactly.
And I think in life, wouldn't that be cool if everybody in life thought that way? Because everybody's looking for the other person to do something.
Yeah.
When you're looking for the other person to do something, that doesn't necessarily work out so well.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the key reasons I ever took a leadership position, I decided I didn't want to work for somebody else. So at a very young rank, I said, I'll do it. Can I be considered for this? And thankfully they did. And then I realized as in a positional power, because that's not real power, that's just a starting point at positional power, but it gives you the opportunity to create an environment where what you both talked about is possible.
Oh, yeah. We got about 3 minutes left, and I want to give Emerson and Deb, the last 3 minutes to be able to share anything that they want to that they haven't covered yet. So, Emerson, you want to go first? You want to go ladies first?
Yeah, Deb, you used the term intent several times here a few minutes ago. And it just triggered something for me, and I'm just going to share this with you. You shared some great insights, in terms of calming down, pulling ourselves back to a center, I'll say. This is a saying, it was something that was given to me, 25 years ago. And I think about it every day, and I probably will be one of the last things on my lips. It's that my intentions and my results are always the same. And that is the heart of responsibility, and recognizing that the sequence of decisions that I make, the sequence of things that I do, the sequence of actions that I take, all lead to whatever the results are. And nobody had a gun to my head making me do them. So it's understanding that what we really focus on in our life and what we want, making that our intent, will end up generating those results in our life. And if we're not having the results, then we need to step back and look at ourselves, not at everybody else. So I don't know if that's something
perfect
that
lesson for every individual, not just every leader.
No, it is true.
Understand, as I mentioned earlier, we enable the behavior around us.
Yes.
If we do nothing, then we are party, and you can. The easy thing is to blame somebody else, but you need to point all those fingers back at you.
Especially if you're a leader.
Yeah. You got to help. You got to own it. You got to own it. That's right. That's the only thing people respect. If you've got the courage to own it, or you got the courage to say, I was wrong, or I'm sorry, I didn't realize this.
I would say you did it with the best information. I don't like those negative words. Are not something that I find wrong. Wrong is you understood completely at the decision point what it was going to happen to do. I don't think we intentionally, like even the people who are in accidents and whatever and die, I don't think they woke up in the morning saying, I want to do this. But it is accountable for the choices that we make, lead us and add to that risk to get there. But I think
that's the core of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would just remind everyone that healthy stress is essential for us for overcoming obstacles. It's like going into the gym, but somehow we seem to lose that with the rest of our lives. And it's essential to accomplishing goals in our life. And stress becomes unhealthy when we can't transform it into something from what hurts us into something that can help us. And so how we handle stress in all situations explains so much of what we're seeing today. And so when you find a way, and this is the essence really of it, when you find a way to hold on to your best, every day becomes that adventure. No matter what the weather, no matter what happens next, when you can do it. I have a picture of someone holding onto a tree in the midst of a storm, which you're going to be facing, and they're smiling because they're knowing that there's something, they've got something to hold on to for one. But they also know that the storm will pass. It's how we deal with it and what we do after it that makes sure that everybody's successful.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our time is gone. We want to thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for you folks out there in TV land over in India and Indonesia and Europe for liking our show. We really appreciate it. Be sure and share it on YouTube. All these wonderful programs we got started in the fall season. Most importantly, number one, make sure you love yourself. Then you can love others. And also love yourself enough to give yourself grace, because many times we're harder on ourselves than we are other people. And it's so important to remember this, that each and every one of us, we're simply brothers and sisters by different mothers. On behalf of Emerson Brantley and our great friend Deb Lewis, I'm Jim Grant. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.